Hi, so I'm Liz and this is Lucy, and we're going to talk a little bit about food.
That, to start off, what are carbohydrates?
Well, I'm just looking at these, Lucy, and they're not really obvious ones, are they? So they're sort of our energy foods, I suppose. So maybe baked beans, I don't know, raisins, would they be?
Okay.
Apples, fruit, I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So carbohydrates are our energy foods. They're really, really important to have in our diets. We shouldn't reduce them in our diets because we need them for energy and to grow. All our young people are growing lots and lots and lots and lots, therefore they need that energy. So quite rightly, Liz was saying, I'm not sure whether this is a carbohydrate or this. So how do we know what foods are carbohydrates? Well, there's something called the Eat Well plate, which demonstrates the 5 different food groups. Liz, do you know what they are?
Carbohydrates?
Yeah, so your starchy foods, yeah, absolutely.
So what sort of food is in that group, Lucy?
So there are really obvious ones. When we think about carbs, we think about bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, cereals. They're all in that starchy carbohydrate group. Now these should be the basis of all our meals. So in your young person's packed lunch or school meal, that's what should be there. But we all know that some of our young people prefer probably the white versions of these, or maybe the not so fibrous versions of these. We would really encourage them to have the whole grain, the skins of potatoes, wholemeal versions of these foods, because they break down slower than the white versions of them. And when we're giving insulin via injection or pump, that insulin just takes a little bit of time to work in the body. So it allows that food to break down more slowly and allow that insulin to work well with those types of foods. But we all know our teenagers, our young people don't necessarily like them. But as long as they're including it and having insulin with it, then that's okay. Anything that's bread-based, cereal-based, pasta-based, potato-based, they're all your starchy carbs. Very, very important to have insulin with.
So if you're thinking about the Eat Well plate, we can think of protein, because some of those proteins will have those other bits added to them, won't they?
Absolutely. So that's another food group, is your meats and meat alternatives. So the main nutrient in that is protein, and meats and fishes by themselves are carbohydrate free. So you might find at snack time someone might be having a pepperami or a bag of fridge raiders or some ham. That's absolutely fine for them to have, or an egg, hard-boiled egg. They can eat that without any insulin. But as soon as the egg becomes a Scotch egg, the fridge raiders become chicken nuggets, something like that, then it does become a carbohydrate. You've added that breadcrumbs, you've added that carbohydrate to that food. Therefore, they need to have insulin with it. With your plant-based foods, so things like your corn, your tofu, your baked beans here, your lentils, your pulses, they're all carbohydrates. If you think they've come from a plant, they're going to be a carbohydrate, so they would need to be counted as part of the meal and have insulin for them. These foods again are really important. They don't need to be there at every meal time, but they're the foods that make them nice and strong.
And so then maybe dairy, is that another one of the Eat Well plate?
Absolutely, so that's another little slice of the Eat Well plate. So your milk and dairy products and dairy alternatives. Now this is a tricky category because some are carbohydrate free and some have got carbs. So Liz was unsure about milk. So milk and yogurt are a carbohydrate. It's a liquid carbohydrate. So what that means is the body absorbs that carbohydrate and breaks down into sugar really, really quickly. So what we recommend is that milk and yogurt stay with meal times. So it's absolutely brilliant to have in a packed lunch, but maybe not so great to have as a standalone snack at break time. There are some little people who might have a carton of milk at snack time. We would recommend that they can keep hold of it and have it at lunchtime instead of break and have a different drink, and we'll talk about drinks in a little while. But if they insist they have to have it at break time, they must have insulin with it. Whereas your creams and your cheeses are carbohydrate free. So again, dairy triangles, baby bells, cheese strings are very popular snack items for our young people. I wouldn't recommend they sat at break time and ate a pot of cream. I don't think their hearts would like that very much. But certainly these can be eaten without any insulin. Again, except if you're having the fancy cheeses that are like Wensleydale and cranberry, etc. We'll talk about fruits in a little bit. But the reason why they're carbohydrate free is the sugar's taken out during the processing of these foods.
Vegetables?
So fruits and vegetables. Now this, to me as a dietitian, is the most important one, but also probably the most confusing category. So fruits and vegetables, hopefully our young people are having 5 a day. Again, whether or not they are, that's a different story. But fruits, very good for our young people. They should be aiming for, they're 5 a day. But again, when you bite into a piece of fruit, it's very liquidy. All fruits are carbohydrates. Again, we count it a bit like a liquid starch, like a bit like the milk. It's going to be absorbed very, very quickly. So although part of healthy eating is to have fruit as a snack, when you've got type 1 diabetes, we recommend to keep fruit again with lunch boxes, with meal times, because the rest of the meal will help slow down how quickly the sugar from the food gets into the bloodstream. So we certainly would like them to still have fruit, but keep it with meal times. Whereas your vegetables, I split them into 2 categories. You've got your salad veg and then all other vegetables. So your salad veg will be your raw carrot, your cucumber, tomato, and no tomatoes are fruit, but we'll count it in this category. Lettuce, what else I missed out on that?
Mushrooms, radishes,
onions. Those types of foods we call carbohydrate-free foods. They can snack on these as much as they like and not have to worry about insulin. Not many young people would like to snack on them, but cucumber, raw carrots and peppers tend to be a popular snack, especially among our smaller children. Absolutely fine, no insulin. Then many vegetables you might have with your meals, or certainly with your school meals. You might have cooked carrot, you might have broccoli, cauliflower, swede, all of those types of vegetables. They are carbohydrates. Sweet corn, peas, all carbohydrates and must be counted as part of their meal and would need insulin for them. Now you might have heard that I said cooked carrot versus raw carrot. Now raw carrot doesn't count as a carbohydrate because your body doesn't break it down enough to release that sugar. Whereas when you cooked carrot, you're already breaking those carbon bonds, which allows that carbohydrate to break down and release that sugar really easily. So that would be a difference between a young person having a carrot stick as a snack and having carrots with their chili con carne with their school meals. So just bear in mind there are a few foods that are like that. So again, we really encourage vegetable intake. If we're looking at that 5 a day, we ideally would like 3 from veg and 2 from fruit with someone with type 1 diabetes. But again, as long as they're having insulin with their fruit, we would like it at meal times. But if they did want it as a snack, they just need to have insulin with it at that point.
So what have we done? We've done carbohydrates, proteins, dairy,
fruit and veg. One more.
I always forget this one. Fats.
Yes, absolutely. High fats, high sugar foods. Now this is the yummiest category of them all, and our young people love this. And what I didn't say at the start was when you've got type 1 diabetes, there isn't a special diet you need to follow. So these young people can eat anything they want, in reason, but they must have insulin with the foods that need it. So high fat, high sugar foods, so like your donuts, like your honey, like your apple sauce, I guess would fit into this category, your sweets, your crisps, your cakes, your takeaways, all those types of foods. They can absolutely still have these. It's just thinking about how much insulin do they need with them and when's the best time to eat them. So again, they all need insulin. Whatever sweets or cakes or chocolates they have, they need insulin. It's unfortunately, we're going to call it the bad sugar. It's the sugar that breaks down really, really quickly. So again, keeping it as pudding within their packed lunches, pudding after dinner, so that's close to a meal time. There are going to be times when it's your birthday or the ice cream van comes round and it's away from a meal time. That is okay as long as they have insulin, but the best time is to have it around a meal. So again, that meal can slow down how quick that sugar, that lots of sugar, breaks down in the body. So they can certainly still have these foods. A few schools in the past have brought special foods in for the young people, like diabetic special sweets, diabetic special chocolates. Please don't buy your young people these foods. And they can eat the normal foods, so why would you replace a Galaxy with sugar-free chocolate? You just wouldn't do it. So as long as they have the insulin, that's absolutely fine for that type of food. But again, we would recommend that they kept it to a minimum, just to follow healthy eating. So if you were noticing your young person was having 5 chocolate bars in their lunchbox, please just have a chat with parents or give us a call to have a chat with the family So although they can have it, we wouldn't recommend that much for any young person, whether they've got diabetes or not. So yeah, they're the 5 food groups. We have missed out drinks, which is really, really important. So our young people, we want them to stay nice and hydrated throughout the day. Most schools allow water to be drunk throughout the day, which is perfect. That's the best drink. Doesn't need insulin. Sugar-free squash, absolutely fine also for the young person. Fizzy drinks hopefully aren't coming into school, but if the teenagers are getting them from the shops, if they're diet, Maxes, Zeros type of drinks, absolutely fine for them to have without insulin. We really, really wouldn't recommend that they had full sugar fizzy drinks. That just causes havoc on blood sugars because of how quickly that sugar gets into the bloodstream. Too quick for the insulin to work for. So we do ask them to stay away from that. Any fruit juices and smoothies and milkshakes, they can certainly have them, but keep them with a meal and they would need insulin for it.
What I'm hearing is that there's no special diet for someone who's got
absolutely.
type 1 diabetes. It's all about making good choices at different times of the day. And that lunchboxes will be counted, the carbohydrate, the parents will count the carbohydrates. How does that work in school?
Absolutely. So your 2 types of meals at school, so either school meals or packed lunches. When a young person's diagnosed, we do recommend that they start off with packed lunch just whilst we're trying to get their insulin right. Parents will be expected to carbohydrate count, and what would have been explained in another video is their insulin to carbohydrate ratios, which are inputted on each individual meter and will be different for each child. So parents would have added up their carbohydrates. What we like to see in a lunchbox is a little list of all the foods that they're eating in their lunch and how many carbs each item of food is. Because for example, and then there'll be a total. Because if that young person didn't want their packet of crisps that day, you could just take off how many grams of carbohydrates their crisps is off the total that's in their lunchbox and input that into their meter. It makes it really clear for that young person because they might not want everything that's in their lunch that day. And we would expect parents or the young person to do that. You wouldn't be expected to do that as teachers because then you're changing insulin, which you're not quite covered for. School meals are a bit different because it's mass produced and it's done by portion sizes of spoons and ladles. So it's a bit of an estimate. If you have a free snack at school, so whether that's fruit or vegetables, we do ask that the young person try and have the vegetable snack at that point. And if it's going to be a really fruity snack that week, I just ask the parents, and they're normally quite happy to bring in some vegetable sticks to have. So the child looks similar to everyone else and doesn't stand out from them and still can be included in that.
So I'm just thinking about the lunchbox that comes into school, and you've got maybe a sausage roll in a packet, and you've got a packet of crisps in the packet, and there's no list of the carbohydrates written down by the parents. How are school staff going to help support that young person?
So involve the young person as much as possible, and what we teach them is every packaged food item has a food label on it. And on that food label, it will have all of their nutrients. So it will have your fat, your protein, your carbohydrates, and all your little micronutrients. We're looking at the total carbohydrates, not the of which sugars, which tends to be underneath it. So the total carbohydrates is what we're looking at. In the vertical columns, it will say per 100 grams or per pack. In this instance, we're looking at per pack. So you'd look at total carbohydrates per pack and see how much it is. You'd add that up for all the items that are in the box and help that young person add it up and get them to do it. You'd also ring parents just to let them know as well and write it in their communication books, because then if there were any queries later on, it's all been recorded and then they've known. You might find as the young person moves through, especially primary school, parents might stop writing the list around years 5 and 6 because they want the young person to become more independent with their own carb counting.
And just around school trips maybe, because foods might be different, that's where we as a diabetes team come in to help, isn't it?
Absolutely. We want that young person to have the best time on that school trip and to be like their friends and to not let diabetes get in the way. So if you know you've got a residential, about 6 weeks before that residential, give us a call and we'll plan a meeting maybe the week before, looking at the menu, looking at the activities, and we can make a plan about what to do around insulin. If it's a day trip and they might have an ice cream in the afternoon, then give us a call. We can talk you through it, and we don't want them to miss out. So if they're going to have a mid-afternoon ice cream, let them have that mid-afternoon ice cream. and we'll work out the insulin for it. So anything food related, if you're not sure, or you have a cooking day or an international food day and you think, oh, I really want them to take part, but I'm just not sure, just give us a call and we can help you. The more prepared you are, the more noticed, then again the better support we can give. It might be quite difficult if it's tomorrow and you've rang today. If it's someone's birthday, a lot of people bring in cakes and sweets for the class. I'm sure you do this anyway, but if you could keep them to the end of the day and give them out, then our young person can take them home and have it with their evening meal rather than in their lessons. Fabulous, so that's food. Thank you very much.